can't believe I'm here, playing for my life tonight.
I can't believe I'm here, I made it, I'm playing for my life tonight. I'm a shining light. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here, playing for our life tonight. Yeah, I'm playing for our life tonight.
Hi friends, this is Kevin, your host for Kingdom Driven Sports. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your understanding on my not being able to get a video out last week. I had actually recorded a video, but was trying a new setting on the software I used to record. And in parts of the video, the audio turned out weird. And that's my fault. I should have tested it out before trying that setting. My apologies. I was hoping to get the video I had recorded up and going, but it just didn't happen. I appreciate you understanding about that, and I appreciate your continued support and patience with me as I venture into this YouTube world and just try to put out content that you want to see. With all that being said, I did want to make a video for this week. While I can't really do the nailed it, sailed it, failed it segment in its traditional sense, I do want to do it in a different way. I'm going to be doing a nailed it, failed it. Not so much regarding any predictions I made because I wasn't able to get those predictions out, but more so based on the teams I'm going to be talking about and their performance, which teams nailed it this week and which teams failed it. So I want to start with the nailed it section. The first team I want to talk about is the Giants, because had I made my predictions, I would not have predicted the Giants beating the Philadelphia Eagles, and not only beating them, but they beat them pretty soundly, 34-17. Jackson Dart had another impressive start. He was 17 for 25, 195 yards and a touchdown. Cameron Scatabo, 3 touchdowns. He is looking very impressive. He runs with purpose and made a statement on Thursday night with his performance against that Philadelphia Eagles defense. On 19 carries, he had 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. So very good performance for Cameron Scatabo. Wan'Dale Robinson helped out with 6 receptions and 84 yards and 1 touchdown. Again, there was no way I thought the New York Giants were going to be able to win this game, especially with no Malik Neighbors, no Darius Slayton. I just thought the Eagles would. Honestly, if you would have told me without saying who won the game that the winner won 34-17, I would have said, oh, the Eagles won 34-17. But no, that was not the case. It shows you how intense divisional games can be and how unknown and unpredictable. Divisional games tend to be the toughest at times because your opponents know you so well. And they play you twice a year, every year. Was that the reason why New York won? Maybe Philadelphia wasn't prepared for Jackson Dart and Cameron Scatabo, seeing that this is their rookie years. I don't know. I just think there's new life in the New York Giants team because of Jackson Dart, because of Cameron Scatabo. And I think their biggest fan is probably Brian Daboll, the head coach of the New York Giants, because he definitely entered this season on one of the hottest seats coaching-wise, where this season's performance, how the Giants do, is going to determine if he returns next year. This is a very promising outcome, and it looks like the Giants might be coming back and looking like they're not just the NFC East punching bag anymore, which is interesting because with the rise of the Commanders last year, they usually were the 2 little brothers that always got beat up in that division. The Eagles and the Cowboys seem to always be the 2 that are trying to compete for that top spot. But not anymore. It looks like the Giants are ready to make a comeback, and we'll see if they can finish strong and make a very interesting NFC East competition. Kudos to the New York Giants. Kudos to Jackson Dart, Cameron Scatabo, and that offense for putting up 34 points on a really good Philadelphia Eagles defense. And for that New York Giants defense to hold the Philadelphia Eagles to 17 points. That's definitely impressive as well. That was one of my nailed it teams, was the New York Giants, because they definitely nailed it on Thursday night, and they were able to come out with a victory, a division victory, which will help them in the end. We'll see if they can make a playoff run. They can continue to play at this level. But for this week, very impressive by the New York Giants. The next team I kind of want to talk about is, I'm going to talk about, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 5-1. Todd Bowles has that team performing very well despite all the injuries. I think the major reason because of that is who is arguably the MVP frontrunner right now through 6 weeks, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is playing lights out. He is 17 for 23 for 256 yards and 2 touchdowns. He, through 6 weeks, has 12 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He is just playing incredibly well, and he's missing many of his top receivers. I mean, you look at Mike Evans, he's been out with a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin hasn't returned yet. There's your number one, number two. And then you have that wonderful surprise of Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, who's a rookie this year, who was doing really well. It seemed like he and Baker had established a really nice connection as Baker was going to him often, and then he goes down. Luka does. And yet here they are playing a much better than expected San Francisco 49ers team and just beating them pretty soundly, 30-19. A lot of that has to do with Baker Mayfield, the way he's leading that team, the way he has performed through these first 6 weeks. I can only imagine what the Browns front office is thinking right now. How did we let him get away? It's just really nice to see Baker Mayfield doing so very well, to see him having found a home in Tampa Bay, and to have them atop the NFC South and really, to me, the number one team right now. They are playing very balanced football. They made Mac Jones, who had looked very well. Now, I don't know how much injury played a part in this, because I do know that in the previous game, I think it was a Thursday night game, it was between the 49ers and the Rams. When the 49ers won, it looked like he took quite a beating in that game. So I don't know if he was 100%, but they definitely made him look very average. Mac Jones had a couple of really good games before that. In this game, while he threw for a lot of yards, 347, he didn't have any touchdowns and he had 2 interceptions. One of the sad things, again, and man, the 49ers the past couple of years just decimated by injury. They suffered another injury. Fred Warner, arguably the best linebacker in the league, suffered a season-ending dislocated ankle, I believe, and it is just sad to see them lose him as well after they've been decimated by injury on both sides of the ball. Credit to Tampa Bay for doing what they needed to and for playing so well through these first 6 weeks. The only loss they have is to the Eagles, and that was a close game. I think if they were to play that game again now, I think the Buccaneers probably win that game. And so, yeah, I think they nailed it, and I think they're going to continue to do well. I think they're going to win the NFC South. I don't think it's going to be much of a competition in that division, although Atlanta did look impressive this week. But Tampa Bay is looking good. Baker Mayfield's looking like a potential MVP winner, definitely an MVP candidate. There are others who are putting up really good numbers as well, but you can't argue with Baker Mayfield being in that conversation. Hats off to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully they can continue to do well and get back to being healthy and get Mike Evans back, Emeka Egbuka, and then Chris Godwin at some point. But yeah, definitely hats off to them. And looking forward to that Monday night matchup against the Detroit Lions. That ought to be a really good game between two really good teams. The next game I want to talk about, the next team that nailed it in my opinion, my Kansas City Chiefs. I felt like this was as much of a must-win game as you can get in the regular season, because I thought that if they went to 2-4, making the playoffs, even with the return of Rashee Rice, would have been pretty difficult. But they were able to do very well against a very good Detroit Lions team, albeit this Lions team was decimated in their secondary with injury. I'm sure that played a factor. The Chiefs' offense was clicking. You had Patrick Mahomes throw for another 3 touchdowns and run in for another. It was 22 for 30 for 257 yards. And that Chiefs offense is starting to show flashes of what it was back when Tyreek Hill was there with the Chiefs and Travis Kelce was younger and in his prime. It was impressive to see them do that to the Detroit Lions. It was also impressive to see their defense hold the number one offense in the NFL up to that point, and the Detroit Lions to 17 points. And now I understand also that Arrowhead is a very difficult place to play for opponents. The noise can get to you, but for the Chiefs defense to hold them to 17 points, I thought was very impressive. I still have some concerns along the defensive line with them not being able to get much pressure without the blitz, and in the playoffs that can really come back to haunt you. I also know they could probably use some help in the running back room. I'm interested to see Brett Veach make some move for either of those two rooms. I don't know if they can swing making a move to help both. So I think they're going to have to choose which one is the greater area of need. I think it also depends on what players are available. The one player I've heard probably the most tied to the Chiefs, maybe two, is Breece Hall and then Alvin Kamara, which they're both running backs. But Alvin Kamara, I think it would be a little bit tougher, because he's made it known that he wants to stay in New Orleans, especially since he is one of their best pieces, if not their best piece. I don't think the Saints would want to move on from him. And it doesn't make sense because I think the financials, if I remember right, wouldn't make sense for the Saints anyway. So I think it would be harder to get Kamara. But Breece Hall, on the other hand, with the way the Jets have started, I mean, the Jets, -10 passing yards, that's not a good look, but I digress. Breece Hall has made it known that he wants out of New York, and if Kansas City can swap, let's say, a 4th-round pick to get him and then work out the contract details, that would be an amazing weapon to get. I think on the defensive line side, it would be a little bit harder. I've heard Simmons from the Titans as an option, and also Hendrickson from Cincinnati. But I would be very surprised if the Chiefs were able to pull that off. I think they would have to give up quite a bit. Personally, I like keeping draft picks and building through the draft. So I wouldn't be super eager to just give away 1st or 2nd or whatever would be required to get a player of that caliber, either Simmons or Hendrickson. And I don't even know if the financials are possible because it would take a lot of finagling to make that work. There are some other options they could go after. I think it would help, but it wouldn't move the needle much in regards to the defensive line. It would just be maybe an additional body that would help generate some pressure, but the players mentioned were either players that haven't met expectations on other clubs or players that are past their prime but still offer some benefit, some help. And I just think if you had to choose between that or getting a Breece Hall, it just makes more sense to get a Breece Hall and really amp up that offense and just work on the young talent you have in, that you drafted this past draft, Omar, Norman Lott, and Ashton and Gelati, pairing them with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, and just trying to create pressure and hope that as the year progresses, that stat progresses as well, the pressures on the quarterback. All that aside, that's still yet to be determined. The trade deadline is still a few weeks away. For this game, the Chiefs definitely nailed it, putting up 30 points on the Lions and holding them to 17. The Lions entering this week, many people thought might be the number one team in the NFL. So for the Chiefs to be able to get a much needed win to bring themselves up to 500, 3-3, and now getting Rashee Rice back for this next week. They're looking good, and potentially like they might be the team in the AFC to beat again. So we'll see. It's still early on. Don't want to jump too far ahead, as there is still a lot of season to go. Now on to the failed it segment. And we have to start with the Cowboys. I don't want to take anything away from the Panthers. I feel like this was a game that the Cowboys should have won. Dak Prescott is another name that I would throw up there with Baker Mayfield, who is playing at an MVP level. The unfortunate thing for Dak Prescott is that his defense is not very good. They're giving out points like crazy. They're not able to really stop opposing teams' offenses, and so it's on Dak's shoulders to try to score every drive and try to outscore the opponents. And that's a tough game to play. Your defense can't make stops, and you just have to try to score on every single drive in the game. And unfortunately for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense, they weren't able to match the Carolina Panthers, who put up 30. And the Carolina Panthers are one of those teams that one week they look fantastic. The next week they look like they shouldn't even be on the field. I just thought this was a blown opportunity for the Cowboys to really get back to 500. I guess that tie always throws me off, the tie that they had with the Packers, especially after that game. They played such a good game, the Packers, and nobody thought they were going to win, and yet they were able to get a tie. Now to go and lose to the Panthers, I just thought it was a blown opportunity to try to continue any momentum from that Packers game and to try to compete, at least for a playoff spot. I'm not sure that they were going to compete for the NFC East because of their defense being such a liability at this point. Right now, Dak Prescott and Baker Mayfield are playing out of their minds. Dak Prescott had 3 touchdowns, 261 yards through the air on 25 for 34 passing. Javonte Williams did not do as well as he did against the Packers. He had 13 carries for 29 yards, which is not a good average at all. George Pickens has stepped up in the absence of CeeDee Lamb and his injury. George Pickens was able to get 9 receptions for 168 yards and a touchdown. But again, that defense, if they do somehow make the playoffs, is such a liability. I don't see them getting past the first round. Not a good week for the Cowboys or their fans as they allow Carolina, who I would say is a mediocre offense, to put up 30 points on them, and they just weren't able to score enough to keep pace, losing by 3, 30-27 to the Carolina Panthers. Kudos to the Panthers for doing what they needed to do to win that game, but I really think the Dallas Cowboys missed an opportunity there. I'm going to stay in the NFC East for my next failed it, and it's going back to that Thursday night game. I don't think there was any way that the Eagles should have lost that game, but they almost seemed uninspired. Watching them play, it didn't seem like their offense could really get going. Kudos to the Giants for getting it done. They weren't good on third down. The Eagles, I think the Eagles were like 1 for 9 on third down, which is not going to get it done. Now, they were 2 for 2 on fourth down, but when you're 1 for 9 on third down, you're not going to do well. You need to convert more third downs than was a little over 10%, 11% of your third downs. And so I think that cost them. They had a fumble and interceptions, a couple turnovers, and it just wasn't a good night for the Eagles. Now, a lot of people are saying they're not too worried about it because those Thursday night games are kind of wonky. That's true. You know, those Thursday night games can be tricky, but I would be slightly concerned because this is not the first signs of this. This is not like this is the only game where they've seemed to have some issues. And so I think they will be fine. I think they have that championship caliber, that championship DNA that I've mentioned in other videos, that they have that. There's definitely some things that need to be cleaned up, like going 1 for 9 on third downs. That's just not acceptable. And I think they will fix them because they are a championship caliber team. That just wasn't pretty on Thursday night, and I'm sure they would be the first to admit that. I'm sure they'll go back to the drawing board, put the work that's necessary in, and they'll be the Eagles that we've known for the past few years, where they're highly competitive, and they'll be one of those teams vying for a spot in the Super Bowl. So I'm not overly concerned with them, but I don't know if they went into this game thinking, oh, it's the Giants and they don't have two of their best receivers, and they have a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back, so we should take care of business. It just shows you can't overlook any team. It was disappointing to see that the Eagles did not play well that game. I'm sure that'll leave a bitter taste in their mouth, and they will come back and hopefully use that to be stronger and be the Eagles that we've seen the past few years, where they're competing for Super Bowls and at least going deep into the playoffs. The last team I want to talk about, we're going to go from the NFC East to the AFC East, and we got to talk about the Bills. Yeah, I definitely didn't expect them to lose to the Patriots last week, but the more I thought about that, I was like, okay, it's Mike Vrabel. He has that toughness that he's instilled in the teams that he's coached. It's looking like that with the Patriots as the year progresses. He built that toughness into them, and he has had success. I mean, you look at Tennessee. He had Ryan Tannehill, and this is no slight on Ryan Tannehill because he played very well for Mike Vrabel. But he had Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback, and there was one year they were the number 1 seed, and they played well. So I am not surprised, the more I think about it, that the Patriots are doing as well as they are. I think in one of my initial videos going into the season, I said the Patriots could very well be a surprise team, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. I am more surprised that the Bills lost the second consecutive game. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Atlanta Falcons because they played a fantastic game. Bijan Robinson is a monster, arguably the best running back in the league, given that performance and the way he's been performing and just the weapon that he is. But given the caliber of the Buffalo Bills and how they have consistently been one of the top 2-3 teams in the AFC every year, competing, going to AFC championships, making it deep into the playoffs, those teams usually have a pretty good bounce back game after a loss. And this was not that. They were only able to score 14 points. Josh Allen had a very mediocre, not Josh Allen game. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, only 180 yards. Now, granted, that Falcons defense is legit. I don't want to take anything away from their defense because they are very good defense. So to be able to hold Josh Allen under 200 yards, to have 2 interceptions, yes, he did have the 2 touchdowns, but it was a very un-MVP-like performance by Josh Allen and that offense. The other impressive thing was that the Atlanta defense was able to hold James Cook, who is, in my opinion, a very underrated running back, to under 100 yards. He had 17 carries for 87, which is decent, but they were able to hold him under 100 yards. And then their leading receiver for the Bills was Josh Palmer with 2 receptions, 60 yards. He may have gone out with an injury in that game too, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, I expected the Bills to come out and make a statement, especially after last week on Sunday Night Football. And they floundered. They laid an egg. And Sean McDermott said afterwards that they're going to really start from ground zero and reevaluate because of this performance and just see what they need to do to get back on track. Because I still think the Buffalo Bills, when you have Josh Allen, you give yourself a chance to win every week because he is that good of a player. There's a reason he won MVP last year. He is that good. But there are definitely some concerns, some signs, some red flags that are showing, are the Bills on the downtrend? Are they on the decline? And because there are some question marks there that are going to need to be answered defensively, very much so. Are the weapons that Josh Allen has currently, are they enough to get them over the hump? Right now, I am not sure. I would probably say no. So it'll be interesting to see if they're one of the teams that makes a move before the trade deadline as well. I don't know which side of the ball they'd wanted to address more, but they definitely need to, I think, make a move or do something if they're hoping to have any chance of moving beyond the AFC Championship game. As for the Falcons, kudos to them, Bijan Robinson, Michael Penix Jr. I think this was a pretty good statement game because they got a convincing 10-point win over a team that made the AFC Championship last year. And so that run game, that defense really showed up. I know that earlier in the video, I said that Tampa Bay is probably going to win the NFC South, and I still believe that because they're just looking fantastic. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons are a playoff team from that division as well. I'd love to see when the Atlanta Falcons and Tampa Bay Buccaneers play again. It's on December 11th. Their first meeting this year was only a 3-point game. The Buccaneers won 23-20. I think also they had a chance to tie the game. I believe their kicker at the time, Koo, ended up missing. And so those games are always interesting between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. So December 11th, mark your calendars. That should be a really good one. As for who they play next, they play for the 49ers, so that'll be a good matchup as well. But again, the 49ers are just decimated with injury. We'll see how that goes. The Falcons, great showing against the Buffalo Bills. I think that they should hold their heads up high. On the other side, Bills, lots of question marks, lots of questions they're going to need to answer on both sides of the ball. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking this video out with me and letting me give you my 2 cents on the games that I mentioned. Interesting week. I'm really glad that again, my Chiefies, they're back at 500. We'll see how they do now that Rashee Rice is coming back. And we'll see how some of these other teams that lost this week will bounce back. I'm sure the Lions, the Buccaneers, the Eagles, those are all teams I'm sure they'll bounce back and be all right. But kudos to those teams that everyone, including myself, doubted. The Giants, possibly the Falcons, Panthers. I wouldn't have thought they would have beat the Cowboys. But here we are. Football's a funny game, and anything can happen on any given week, which makes it super exciting and super awesome. Thank you again for stopping by. If you haven't liked the video, I ask that you please do. That really helps me. And if you'd like to subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. I'd appreciate that as well. Until next time, know that Jesus loves you. God bless you. And I look forward to talking to you guys again. Have a good one.